If you're naturally short, you learn to embrace it. If you're tall, you do the same. No matter what, you accept who you are and make the most of it. This is the essence of amor fati, the love of fate. Acceptance is a concept we often resist. It feels like giving up, like admitting defeat. But for the Stoics, Epictetus in particular, acceptance isn't about resignation. It's about mastery. Learning to accept what happens to us is the first step toward transforming those events, making them something useful, something meaningful. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful Stoic principle known as amor fati, the love of fate. It's about embracing the things that happen to us, accepting our circumstances, not because we've given up, but because acceptance is the first step toward making something meaningful out of them. It's how we turn adversity into opportunity. Take Thomas Edison, for example. One evening, while enjoying dinner with his family, a man bursts in with terrible news. The factory is on fire. Edison rushes to the scene and finds his life's work burning to the ground. His son stands there in shock. But what does Edison say in that moment? He tells his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." Some might have thought he was out of his mind, but Edison was actually living out a Stoic truth. The fire, like so many challenges in life, was completely out of his control. Complaining wouldn't help. But what Edison understood, and what the Stoics teach, is that how we respond is where our power lies. And Edison responded with resilience. The next day, Edison tells a reporter, "I've been through things like this before." It keeps an old man from getting bored. He immediately starts rebuilding, securing a loan from Henry Ford. Within 6 weeks, the factory is partially up and running. 6 months later, it's fully operational again. The third act of Edison's life is about rebuilding after the fire. Think about it, he could have been defeated, but instead, he saw something profound in the moment. "You'll never see a fire like this again," he thought. There's something absurd and strangely beautiful in that. The chaos and destruction, when viewed through a different lens, becomes part of his journey. And rather than dwelling on the loss, Edison chooses to see it as a challenge, one that keeps him from getting bored and that pushes him to get back to work. He didn't just wish for things to be different. He embraced the situation as it was and moved forward. This is the essence of the Stoic mindset. You can either want things to turn out a certain way, or you can learn to welcome them as they come. Epictetus put it simply, you can wish for things to go your way, or you can accept that they've turned out exactly how they are meant to. The Stoics had a term for this, the discipline of assent. It's about deciding not to fight reality. Instead of wishing for the rain to stop, you accept it and find a way to make it work. If it's cloudy, you find peace in the cloudiness. If it's sunny and hot, you embrace that too. Stoicism teaches us to accept life as it is. Whether you're short or tall, you make peace with it. It's not about resignation. It's about making the most of what you've been given. This is amor fati, the love of fate, embracing what life presents and using it to propel you forward. The Stoics didn't see acceptance as weakness. In fact, it was their first step in moving forward. Acceptance of the external world, the things we cannot control, becomes the foundation for growth. For the Stoics, acceptance wasn't about giving up, it was about making the best use of the hand you were dealt. There's a Latin phrase they often used, amor fati, which translates to love of fate. It's not mere acceptance, it's an embrace of everything, good or bad. Marcus Aurelius expressed it perfectly when he said, "What you throw in front of the fire is fuel for the fire." In the Stoic mind, both good and bad events are like fuel, each one feeding the fire of growth. With time and perspective, we often come to appreciate the difficult moments in our lives. The failures, the heartbreaks, the embarrassing mistakes, they all become part of our journey. Without those moments, we wouldn't be who we are today. In retrospect, those hardships can even become sources of gratitude, as we see how they've shaped us. In the moment of hardship, the last thing on our minds is acceptance. We're often caught fighting, resenting, and wishing things were different. But if, in the end, you're going to see it as something positive, why delay that realization? Why not give yourself the gift of peace now, rather than waiting for time to soften the blow? This is where the Stoic practice of acquiescence comes in. It's not about resenting the situation or fighting against it. It's about accepting it for what it is and trusting that, even if you can't see it now, in the future you will come to understand it as something that shaped you for the better. You will see it as a crucial part of your growth, a force that made you who you are. It's been a challenging year, to say the least. But as Marcus Aurelius approached the end of his life, facing even the most terrifying of experiences, death itself, he reminded himself of everything he had already endured. He used those past struggles as fuel, thinking, "Of course I can get through this. Look at what I've survived before." When facing challenges, big or small, that's what we must remind ourselves. We've made it through tough times before, and we can do it again. Edison, standing in front of his burning factory, reflected, "I've been through things like this before." He didn't allow himself to be overwhelmed by the situation. Instead, he chose to use it, turning it into a source of motivation. That's what the Stoic does. They draw strength from past struggles, using their experiences to face the present with confidence. Amor fati, the love of fate, teaches us to embrace everything that comes our way. It's not about resenting challenges or holding grudges. It's about welcoming them and discovering the good within them. But let's be honest, this isn't natural. Our instinct when bad things happen is often to ask, "Why me?" We feel wronged, and we can be quick to hold on to grievance. The Stoic philosophy challenges that instinct, helping us turn those natural reactions into something more powerful. It's about training ourselves to accept everything, no matter how difficult it may be. For Nietzsche, life is filled with pain, adversity, and inevitable loss. Our bodies will age, our loved ones will pass, and we will face failure. That's simply the reality of life. To fight against this, to resent the pain that inevitably comes, is to reject life itself. Amor fati means loving life in its entirety, embracing every experience, even the painful ones, as part of the grand whole. It's easy to talk about amor fati when we're facing small inconveniences, like a delayed flight or a broken printer. But how do you apply this philosophy when the challenges are much greater? When you're facing profound adversity, like losing your independence or dealing with debilitating illness. These moments truly test our ability to practice amor fati in a meaningful way. They force us to reflect deeply on what it means to embrace life fully, even when it feels impossible. Amor fati isn't just a guiding principle for minor frustrations. It's the ultimate tool for navigating life's deepest, most transformative hardships. The natural reaction when something goes wrong is often frustration, disappointment, or a sense of injustice. Why me? This isn't fair. We want to keep going the way we were, but life throws us off course, and it can be difficult to accept. The first emotional response is completely normal, but it's only the beginning. The real work happens the day after that initial reaction. That's when we must step back, analyze our emotions, and try to understand why we're feeling what we feel. I've gone through this process myself, and it has been a deeply transformative experience. Every day I have to retrain my body to learn how to move and use my fingers again, like a child learning to walk. I'm exploring the limits of my patience, my capacity for frustration, and my understanding of my own mind. I can't pretend that I love the stroke I've suffered. It wouldn't be honest or realistic to say that. But what I can say is that I've accepted it. I've learned to understand how it fits into my life and how, despite everything, it has the potential to make me a stronger, more resilient person.